Hello and welcome to Little Imps, hosted by the sexiest little imp of them all. It's me, Mark Wilkinson. It may not be immediately obvious, but one of the aims of the show is to be funny. And if only the show was visual, there'd be no shortage of things to mock. As it is, I can promise the listeners there's certainly something funny about the four panellists before me, who'll be walking the plank into a shark pit of improvised scenes and scenarios, prompted at cutlass point by me. The cutlass isn't part of the metaphor, I just like to be prepared. Given that you can't see the motley crew gathered before me, I'll attempt to describe them via the ancient gift of popular culture. Our first team captain embodies the slogan "twee as fuck" and was recently voted most likely to request the floral dance on a Mary Ann Hobbs show. It is Dan Luxton.
Hello.
And with him, damp-nosed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, the artist is a young dog, it's Antosh Wojcik.
Hello.
Our second team captain may wish he was a little bit taller, but he remains our very own pocket rocket, the pint-sized prince. It's Brendan Way.
Hello.
On Brendan's team tonight, a man who told me earlier he was feeling funny. I was pleased to reassure him that he looked funny, and I'm distressed to tell you that he smells funny. He's a funny guy. It's Scott Freeman.
You're right.
We begin as always with the word paints 1,000 pictures. Here the two teams are going to showcase the tools at their disposal as Brendan and Dan fight for my attention by telling me exactly why they should be crowned today's winners. However, so they're not completely in the dark, their respective guests will shine a metaphorical torch into the blackness via a single word prompt which their captains will then spin out into a full argument. Will they see the light or be blinded? Let's find out. Antosh, what is your one word prompt for Dan?
Gluttony. Well, that should tell you everything you need to know. We are so greedy to win this. I am especially, because this is episode 5 and at the moment the series is at a 2-2 draw. So whoever wins this episode wins the series. I am so hungry to win this because I have expended all my creative powers into moulding this wonderful series and my mouth waters when I write down a round for us to play and I instantly need to reach for my munchies. Because this is a drug, this show. It keeps me reaching for food. And the only food that can end my hunger is the food of victory.
I see. A stirring speech. Churchill could have done no better. Scott, can I ask you to give your one-word summary of why your team should win?
Madcap.
I have a madcap. I'm a massive fan of hats, and I will give you one of my madcaps. Honestly, they're crazy. One's got propellers, one looks like a penguin inside out, another's just really, really yellow. They're mad. London Fashion Week has seen nothing compared to these mad hats, these mad caps, these mad hatters that I employ to give me these mad caps. You want a hat? You want a hat to cover the hair?
There's not much hair.
Yeah, but you shaved your hair, so there's less hair, so you could cover that with a mad cap.
I could. I'm not sure about hats. I've tended to shy away from hats. Okay, I've considered both arguments, and I'm afraid the points go to Dan.
Yes.
Yay.
We flounce onwards to a round called Period Piece, and it's a round that often causes giggles, because yes, the name Period Piece sounds a bit like an item of female sanitary equipment. But if you don't like it, at least you know where you can stick it. In this round, the teams will be acting out ordinary scenes, which I will give them, but I'll be calling out the names of different historical or literary eras and locations. Each time I do that, our performers will have to change their behaviour to match the scene's new setting. Brendan and Scott, you'll be up first. Scott, you have to break the news to your wife, Brendan, that you have just lost your job.
Honey,
Yes? What's wrong? You lost your shoes? You didn't like lunch? Somebody was mean to you?
I guess you could say the last one.
Come on, out of it.
Dickensian London.
Shocking, startling news.
Look out your legs. You got out your legs.
The printing press. They,
yes.
Turns out they've got these new printers to do my job, so I'm no longer needed.
Oh dear, what does that mean? Shall I inform the servants? Do I need to get rid of the servants? Can we get more servants?
We might need to fire the servants. Or kill them.
No! How do we kill them? Do we do it ourselves? Do we get servants to kill the servants?
I believe
do the
we
servants
pour
get
a
each other
bath.
knives? What?
Ancient Rome.
We're going to kill all these servants because we cannot pay them anymore.
Why can't we bathe with us? I don't know. I was going for Italian, apparently I'm French. The Romans had lots of foreign exchange students.
Yes.
Mamma mia.
Anyway, yes.
Yes, what's wrong with the servants in the baths? We invented the baths. Why can we not bathe with the servants?
We can't bathe with the servants. They smell funny and they have markings.
But that's why they need the bath, to get off the markings, get off the smell.
What does this have nothing to do with the markings? It's got to do. I lost my job at the parchment place.
English Civil War.
I don't know what I'm going to do. My gun is all that matters to me in this printing press. I'm sorry, old girl. I'm going to have to shoot you in the head.
And I think that brings matters satisfactorily to a close.
English Civil War. He must be married to a horse.
Well, yeah, perfectly reasonable. Next up, Antosh and Dan. Antosh, you have to explain to your partner Dan that you are pregnant, despite not having been intimate recently.
Dan, I'm not really sure how to break this to you, but I think I'm pregnant.
You're what?
I think I'm pregnant.
I'm sure you can see why, that's a problem, but with us being lesbians and all. So, what's your explanation? I'm waiting.
I don't.
World War One.
Well, there's a war on, don't you know? We've been slaving away in this field hospital here in the middle of war-torn France, trying to hide our lesbianism in the broom cupboard. And you go off and you have some rotten old German stick his rotting, mouldy weapon into you.
He wasn't German. He was one of ours.
One of ours?
Yes.
No Englishman would do such a thing to an unmarried woman. It must be one of the Huns. They're the only people swinish enough to do such a thing.
It wasn't a Hun. He just killed the Hun. He had the Hun's head on. Because he'd lost his own head. And he was leaking everywhere. And I was open.
The Yorkshire of Wuthering Heights.
Because I'd fallen on the floor. And there were sperm in my trap. And I tried to tell her.
Bloody hell, this always happens to me. Kathy, my last lover, she did the same thing. She ran off with Heathcliff.
I didn't mean to do you.
Am I the only true lesbian in the whole of the North?
I think most of them die in the marsh. I didn't mean to disrespect you,
Well, you have disrespected me. You've disrespected me and my family.
But I just...
I come from a long line of lesbians. And you've brought shame upon us all.
It's a girl. It's a girl. We can raise a family of lesbians. We can be the first lesbian family up to the North. We can be the Yorkshire lesbians.
The Stone Age.
Oh, I like idea. You like idea?
Yes.
We reject men. Men no good. Although men give baby, we have baby.
Yeah.
We
no longer need men.
No longer need men. I think of you whole time. Whole time. I just want baby.
I think of you whole time too. I forgive you.
Thank you.
And bringing a close to that touching scene, I am afraid that the points are going to Dan and Antosh.
Yes.
We move on to a round called Bobber Job, a round whose name evokes memories of a golden age when reluctant Cub Scouts were pimped out by tyrannical arcalas to those who liked the idea of being waited on by young boys but were hampered by the labour laws. In this round, two of our panellists are going to play a candidate of a job interview and their long-suffering interviewer. First up are Dan and Scott. Dan, you will be asking questions to assess whether Scott would make a suitable employee. But Scott, every one of your answers must mention a member of your family.
So, thank you for turning up, Mr. Freeman. Can I ask how you are today?
Gina said I'd be happy today.
Well, you look happy today. You have a fantastic smile all over your face. I'm not sure whose it is. So, can I ask what you would bring to this job?
I'd bring Leonard. He's my pet cobra. I'll keep him in the bath.
Well, pet cobras could be useful if you're a fireman. So, have you ever put out any fires before?
I have once. I set fire to Marie's leg because she wouldn't go with me to the barn dance.
I see. Well, there aren't many barns in this part of the world, so I think we should be safe there. Now, how are you working in a team, or are you more of a solo player?
I love teams. I love people. I love Jerome. No, he's a bastard!
I see. Now, you will, of course, be dealing with some quite heavy equipment. Have you ever done any heavy lifting in the past?
I lifted his tombstone.
Well, only last week we were called out to a zombie uprising where someone had tried to deal with it by setting the zombies on fire. So there was lots of lifting of tombstones then. You're not afraid of heights, are you, by any chance?
Only when it's heights on a ladder and Derek's at the end of the ladder.
Well, there are a lot of ladders involved in being a fireman.
Are there lots of derricks involved in being a fireman?
Well, quite often an oil derrick will catch fire. But I assure you that you will be in total control when dealing with flaming derricks. Finally, can I ask if you are currently in any relationships that will make such a difficult job stressful for you?
I'm a screaming womb! I'm currently living with 12 monkeys.
Right. It does so happen that our positive discrimination in the workplace form does offer an opening for us to employ a screaming womb, and so I would like to offer you the job of person that we send into the dangerous fires first. You start on Monday.
It's nice to see Scott gainfully employed. I had no idea his family was so jungly. Next up, it's Brendan's turn to be questioning Antosh, but Antosh is only going to answer each question after consulting his imaginary friend.
All right, Mr. Wojcik. Why'd you want to work on the ranch?
Why do we want to work on the ranch, Mr. Quentin? Mr. Quentin, could you put down your handkerchief, please? I'm asking you a question. 1 second, please. Mr.
No,
Quentin.
don't worry.
So, why do we want to work? We like cows and the way they muse about yarn. Okay, we think that it is vital for us to be part of the ranch because we like the way that cows muse about yarn balls.
I wondered what they were thinking when they chew that cud. Okay, you got any previous experience with the animals?
Tell them about the time that we shoved a saucepan up. No, I don't really want to go there. Aunt Mary used to own a horse factory where they built them out of ash, and me and Quentin once put saucepans under the ash vaults and they turned into donkeys because their legs weren't big enough.
Right, who's Quentin? Because you know this opening is only for one.
Oh, Quentin, what do I do? Tell him you're a figment of my imagination, but that would be lying. Quentin is myself addressing myself.
Well, that's perfectly natural. I talk to myself on the farm all the time. How soon can you start if you're employed on this farm? Because we need the chickens to have their eggs taken, and they're pretty stuffed up right now.
Okay, Quentin, you're going away, aren't you? And that means I have to be there as well. When do you plan to be back from Brazil? Okay, well, I don't know if you're touring as International Man of Leather for that long. What, longer? What do you mean there's a gay convention that they want you to go to? I didn't even know you were gay. You can't tell me this in an interview. Okay, about 4 months?
Right, well,
is that too late, or?
That is too late. The chickens would have exploded if they haven't had their eggs yet.
I can tell Quentin to not go. In fact, Dad would probably like that.
Right, well, if Quentin could not go and you could come, is that acceptable?
Okay, Quentin, we can't go, okay? I know there was going to be lots of bum fun and throwing of confetti, but we can't do it because we need this job.
Hang on. Are you gay?
Quentin, are we gay? No, you are, and I'm not. I'm not.
Well, in that case, you can have the job. Welcome aboard!
I'm not convinced by either Brendan's knowledge of farming or Antosh's suitability for the role. Nevertheless, the points are going to Brendan.
Alright!
Our next game is called the Agony Booth. Like the torture device from Star Trek, after which it is named, it's not something you would wish on your worst enemy. In this round, the teams will be taking on the guises of Agony Aunts, those last bastions of hope for people who can't talk to anyone or who have no one to turn to. But it's not just laryngitis sufferers and solo ballet dancers who write in. Dan and Antosh, you're going to be crafting a letter to an Agony Aunt. But the trick is, you've got to dictate this emotional epistle using alternating sentences. Brendan and Scott, you're then going to reply with some quality advice in the same way. Take it away, Antosh and Dan.
Dear Auntie Jane,
I have a problem to talk to you about.
I think you'll find it's a problem that you have never encountered in all your 50 years of writing an Agony Aunt column.
For I am much older than you.
And that is my problem. I cannot die.
Many a time have I been approached by strangers holding stakes and guns alike.
I have often wondered why they would be carrying these things in the Toys R Us where I work.
Because I sleep in a plushy coffin, and when I pop out making jukebox sounds, I'm often confused why they are waiting for me.
I feel so persecuted against. I have always considered myself a valuable member of staff for Toys R Us.
Especially when entertaining children.
In fact, that giraffe they use as their logo was based on me many, many years ago.
I have a really long neck and often hit my head in the toilet.
I ask for a very low wage. In fact, all I ask for is...
a prostate exam every quarterly month.
and 17 gallons of blood from the plumpest virgin.
They don't come around Southampton too often, but I feel like I do get lucky sometimes on days such as Red Nose Day.
In fact, I have been considering selling my services to Red Nose Day, who I feel could do with a new logo.
A giraffe eating a virgin.
I'm somewhat obsessed with giraffes. This is a secondary problem that I would like your help with solving.
If you have any neck braces that would support me, I would much appreciate that.
Yours sincerely,
Nelly the giraffe.
Dear Nelly,
I think.
you need to work at a place where there are higher ceilings.
Perhaps.
You should consider another toy shop because Toys R Us isn't the sponsor of this podcast.
I think.
That the giraffe obsession will pass with time.
And,
Eventually you will move on to elephants.
however,
They don't have as long necks, but they will have other long things which you might find pleasurable.
on the contrary,
You may never love anyone ever again.
perhaps.
That is a good thing.
Nonetheless,
I think you should look for love wherever you find it, even if it sees you getting banned from the zoo.
to conclude,
Please never write here again. You're a freak. Yours sincerely, Jane.
Okay. We've reached the halfway point. But now it's time for Scott and Brendan to unburden their terrifying ailment.
Dear Agatha,
today hasn't been a good day.
no days are good days.
Not anymore.
Because of the thing which I'm going to write to you now.
It creeps on me sometimes.
This thing in my room,
I've tried to kill it with a razor blade.
but it liked it.
I want to express to you,
My disappointment that it took my razor.
and why I now hobble about like a peg-legged pirate.
It scratched off my leg with the razor.
Sometimes I get in the fetal position and cry for hours.
Which is very hard to do with one leg.
Have you any alcohol I could rub on my wounds, Agatha?
If not alcohol, some sort of advice. Yours sincerely, Joe.
Dear Joe,
I had a friend with a similar problem once.
he was in the war and was hit by artillery.
And as he lay in his barracks at night, he heard a strange noise.
It kind of sounded like a German with Tourette's.
He turned on the light and found that it was a German with Tourette's.
Holding a razor. He had cut off the remaining parts of his limbs.
Which had left him as a disembodied torso, scurrying about on the floor.
However, he was in the medical bay, so it wasn't that bad, because his problem could be seen to accordingly.
Therefore, my advice to you is, go and live in a medical bay.
And invest in a nightlight,
And a night shirt.
and maybe a mosquito curtain.
Mosquitoes can be very tricky buggers when they get their hands on a razor.
Especially if they are sponsored by Wilkinson Sword, or any other named brand.
I buy my shavers from Toys R Us.
They are excellent for removing pelts.
If you find yourself in danger of losing the other leg, this is what I suggest.
Get lots and lots of sellotape, sing the national anthem, glug a couple of swigs of gin, and go crazy with the tape.
I hope we have been of some help. Your loving confidant.
Agatha.
Okay, we've reached the end of the round. Points need to be awarded. Where are they going?
I don't care, I'm getting paid by Toys R Us.
I got an endorsement from Wilkinson Sword.
In which case, the points to Brendan and Scott.
Hey!
Oh no, we shot ourselves in the foot there.
Keeps them in with a shout going into the...
Okay.
So not on skill or merit,
No,
just
none of the
attention,
above.
narrative
None of the
reasons.
above. Narrative. Time for the imps to be rocked to their slumber in a round called Even Bluer Peter. This round is their chance to explain certain grown-up concepts that children may find difficult, such as cruelty, corruption, or why the Teletubbies were ever popular. Teams, you'll be taking it in turns to play the cheery hosts of a jolly children's show, presenting a special piece on an adult subject which I will give you. Brendan and Dan, you're our first wannabe Ant and Dex. Have a go at the menopause.
I beg your pardon.
Hello, children.
Hello!
Mummy's acting a bit off, isn't she?
I know, right? She wouldn't even buy you an ice cream, and that's terrible.
Because everyone loves ice cream. Even the lactose intolerant people, they're just faking it when they say it's bad for them.
So, I expect you're wondering why Mummy is being such a big meanie poo-poo pants.
And why she's a bit sweaty at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you. It's because of a little thing we call the menopause. Brendan, would you like to explain the menopause?
Certainly, when Mum gets slightly
Don't
too
forget
old,
the diagram.
slightly too old, she starts to perspire here, and under those because she's old and is losing water.
Now, over here, we have a gallon of fake blood. The recipe for how to make fake blood is on our website. Brendan, would you like to demonstrate how we're going to use this fake blood?
Yes, I have poured it all over me to demonstrate what used to happen to Mummy. She would get covered in blood. Now she doesn't anymore
But don't
because
worry, it's
she's
not a
old.
bad thing.
It's a natural thing. She gets a little cut every time of the month, and now that's stopped. Mummy's tap for making babies has dried.
So that means that little sister you asked for, not going to happen.
Unless Daddy sleeps with the nanny again.
But he's not going to do that because he said he was very, very sorry.
And he loves Mummy.
Even though she is screaming at him and throwing ornaments at him and refusing to acknowledge that she's getting older.
And won't buy you ice cream. That is the biggest crime.
Now, Brendan,
Yes.
I see that next to you, you have a mannequin of a young woman with no clothes on and an old woman with no clothes on. Would you like to highlight the differences between the two?
Those things are saggy.
Mm-hmm.
That's grey.
Mm-hmm.
And that might as well be falling off.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Spot the difference. Always fun.
Next week, we'll be looking at a mannequin of a young man with no clothes on and a mannequin of an old man with no clothes on. But Brendan won't be getting as excited about those as he is about the mannequins we have with us now.
I'll still get a bit excited.
Probably.
See you next week!
Unless Brendan's been fired.
Beautifully done. Scott and Antosh, your turns to inform, educate and entertain. We are going to talk about drink driving.
Oh, wow. I've had lots of juice tonight, and I feel like a good old drive. Oh no! Oh no! What is it? Stop! Stop! Oh my God!
My children, they won't be able to ever hold their mother again because she's been a victim of drink driving. Has your dad ever come home and not been able to articulate why he's got a waitress's thong in his pocket?
Has your mother ever thrown a vodka bottle at you and laughed like a orc?
She's possibly an alcoholic, and if these people in your homes are driving cars, then you should say a big no to them. They might say that they are just having their special juice today, but you've got to say no. You have to turn to the fruit chute, to the Ribena carton. Don't give in to the bottles.
You're better off drinking your own urine than having drink and then going driving. Don't go drinking then driving. No. Drink your own urine.
Scott is also an alcoholic, which is why we have him on the show today.
Yes, I crashed the car this morning and killed a woman.
But children, we would like to encourage you to not follow in Scott's example. He is a bad man, and after this show, we'll be going down for time.
Yes, I am that bad man. Children, don't take my example. Don't go to the house of the rising sun.
I've been working with him for 10 years, and it was never apparent.
No.
So, if your father says that he is merely going outside for a couple of cans,
He's a bloody liar!
so make sure you always ask them questions. And if they're gonna go for a drive down to the shops, you've got to ensure that they're just gonna get you some yogurt.
Steal their elbow pads.
That stops them from driving drunk.
We all need elbow pads to drive drunk, so don't wear elbow pads and don't drink, children. No, don't drink, then go driving. No, drink your own urine and then have some Ribena.
Right, children, I think the sirens are coming for Scott now. Please say goodbye to him, for he will no longer be presenting Blue Peter. I hope we've been an encouraging example of why you really should not drink and drive.
Beautifully explained. Children everywhere now know. Take away the elbow patches.
It's like Crime Watch for Kids, the reconstruction.
And that brings us to the end of the show, and indeed the series. This week's winners.
I think you should take into account the fact that Brendan was texting throughout that last.
Stop trying to get your fellow captain in trouble.
This is what I've been doing for the last 18 weeks instead of doing uni work. I'm writing this. And you text.
Right, no, I'm afraid this week's winners are Dan and Antosh.
Yeah!
Yes!
The series goes to Dan.
Yes!
This week's winners are Dan and Antosh, bestowing pearls of wisdom, while our losers are Brendan and Scott, who are just irritating. Thank you to the audience for sticking with us. We hope you've been entertained. Until we return, this has been Little Imps. I, Wilkinson. Goodbye!
Bye.
You've been listening to Little Imps, hosted by Mark Wilkinson and starring Brendan Way and Dan Luxton, with Scott Freeman and Antosh Wojcik. Little Imps was written and devised by Dan Luxton, with additional material from the rest of the cast, and recorded at the University of Winchester for Talking Tosh Productions.
It's tasty in there.
That's what my uncle said. But we're not talking about my uncle. We're talking about globalization.
You've been listening to Little Imps, hosted by Mark Wilkinson and starring Brendan Way and Dan Luxton, with guest... Oh, fuck it. It's because I've written with guest 1 and guest 2.
They were my favourites.
Right. We'll go again.